In this section, we are going to create 3 custom tools in ArcGIS Pro that rely on ArcPy and definition queries. The first is going to be to generate a definition query based on a selection in the map. Now, this course was developed before Esri brought out the generate definition query from selection tool that came about in ArcGIS Pro 3.4. Even so, the workflow will show you how to build your own custom tool. We will then generate definition queries where there are geometry intersections, and lastly we are going to build our own little map series using definition queries. So go ahead and check them out. We will create a custom tool that creates a definition query based on selected features in a layer. Open up the tool def query from selection.py script from the Python scripts folder. Our tool requires 3 user input parameters. The first is the input layer, and this is the layer that has the selection on it that we want to create the definition query for. The second is the OID field for that layer. Now, this parameter is probably not required as user input. You could get the OID field from the in layer using list fields, and we'll do that in the next tool. For now, we will ask the user for the field name. And our last parameter is delete definition queries. This will be a checkbox whether the user wants to delete any previous definition queries set on the layer or not. We have 3 required objects. We have our APRX variable, which represents an ArcGIS project object. And we've seen throughout the course that we supply in the current string to get the open APRX. We will then get the layer object from the active map that represents the in layer from the user input. And we use the ArcGIS project object, active map property, and the list layers function for our map. We supply in our layer name, and because list layers returns a list, we only want the first layer returned from that list, and there should be only one from using the wildcard in here. We then get a set of OID values using set comprehension and a search cursor. So for each record or row in our in layer, and we're only interested in the field input, which is the OID field, we want that attribute returned. Row 0 just equates to the field attribute in this instance. And we've wrapped these in curly braces, so we'll be returned a set object. Now, this could be a list because object IDs by nature are unique values. If the delete definition query is set to true, we are going to delete all definition queries in our layer by using the update definition queries function for our layer and supplying in the none value. This will remove and delete all definition queries for our input layer. So we will only delete if the delete definition query parameter is set to true if it is checked. And lastly, we're going to update the definition query for our in layer. So we'll set our in layer definition query, and here we are formatting the SQL. This 0 will be replaced by the field name. So if you think back to our county boundaries, this will be county, but in this instance this field is going to be the object ID. Now that could be object ID, FID, OID, depending on the data type and the name of the OID field. And here we are creating a list of comma separated integer values as a string. So in order to do that, we need to cast our OID values as a string, and this will replace the one in here. So between our parentheses we will get 1, 2, 3, 10, 5, etc. In this video we went through the Python script that will be behind the definition query from selection tool, and in the next video we are going to take a look at creating this custom tool in ArcGIS Pro. In this video we are going to create our create definition query from selection tool in ArcGIS Pro. We are in the ArcPy definition query APRX. We can close down the Python window. We're also going to turn off county boundaries and turn on place names. Over on the right hand side we'll go into toolboxes and into our ArcPy definition query toolbox. You can see we have 3 custom made tools here, and each of these were made by right clicking and going to new script. Here we're going to look at definition query from selection. We'll right click and go to properties, and we have our tool properties window. We've set the name as def query from selection. We've set the label that you see in the toolbox as definition query from selection. We see the toolbox it resides in, and we've given it a description of create a new definition query for a layer and set it as the active definition. Let's click into our parameters. As we saw in the previous video, we have 3 input parameters. We have our input feature layer, our OID field, and delete previous definition queries. And for the name, we have used the name from the script. You don't have to do this, but it just matches up nicely. The input feature layer is of data type feature layer. It is required. The OID field is of data type field. It is also required. And we've set a filter in here that can only be an OID field. This parameter has a dependency on the in layer, so the OID field will be the OID name from the input feature layer. Our last parameter is delete previous definition queries. We've set this as a boolean, meaning it'll be a checkbox. We've set this as optional, and we've set the default to true. In our execution tab, we have pointed the script to be our tool def query from selection.py script from our Python scripts folder that we saw in the previous video. And you can set this by clicking this folder over here. We'll go into the validation tab. We have a validation in our update messages. This is just basically saying if there's not a selection made on the layer, do not run the script. There must be a selection made. Otherwise, you'd be just creating a definition query for every single feature. So we're saying if the first parameter has been altered, we will get a describe object from using arcpy.describe. This will describe the feature layer. If there is a selection made, there will be an FID set, and this means we do not need an error message. But if there is no FID set, that means no selection has been made, and we will set an error message saying there must be a selection on the layer. In this video, we saw how the create definition query from selection tool was constructed in ArcGIS Pro. In the next video, we are going to see the tool in action. In this video, we are going to see the create definition query from selection tool in action. You can double click on the tool to open, or right click and select open. Now we can put in our input feature layer. We currently do not have a selection. Let's put in place names, and we can see we got this error. There must be a selection on the layer. So let's select around half of these. We'll go back over to our tool and we will select the object ID. So the object ID is the name of the OID field in our input layer. Let's go over and check our place names definition queries. We'll go into properties, and there is none set. We'll click OK. So it doesn't matter if we have delete previous definition queries checked or not. Let's just turn it off. We have 186 records selected. Let's click run. And while running, we'll click view details. And we can see any messages populate the screen. So it had updating definition query. If we close the tool dialog box, we can see we only have half of our features presented, those that were selected. And if we go into our place names, properties, we now have a definition query set. Click OK. Let's clear the selection and select half of what's remaining. We'll leave the delete previous definition queries unchecked, and we will run again. And we can see that our features have been updated. Let's do another selection and run our tool again. We'll go over to our place names and go into properties, and we have 3 definition queries for the 3 that we have just run. While we're here, we will turn off this query tree and click apply and click OK. Let's clear our selection and we'll make another selection. This time we will select delete previous definition queries. We'll run our tool. We can see the change in the map, and now in place names, if we right click and go to properties, we can see the other three have been deleted and we're left with the definition query from this run. In this video, we saw the create definition query from selection tool in action. We saw how the tool used the object IDs from the selection to create a definition query. Users had the option to delete all definition queries and only apply the new one, or append the new one to the current set of definition queries for the layer. In this video, we will take a look at the Python script for creating a definition query for intersecting features. Open up the tool def query from intersection.py script from the Python scripts folder. This tool requires 4 user inputs. We have our input feature layer that we want to add the definition query to. We have our intersection layer and features from the in layer that intersect an individual feature in the intersect layer will be updated with a definition query. We are going to name each definition query, and we're going to name it based on an attribute from the intersect layer. In order to achieve this, we need a field, a text field that contains unique values. There's also a stipulation here that values cannot be null. Similar to the previous tool, we are going to allow users the choice to delete definition queries. Next, we'll check the required objects. We need access to the Open APRX through the ArcGIS project class. We use the user input to get a layer object for the layer we wish to create a definition query for. Here we are using the APRX, which is our ArcGIS project object, and the active map property, which returns a map object, and from the map object we're using the list layers function and supplying in the user input in layer. List layers returns a list, so we are interested in the first element of that list, and in layer will represent the layer in our map as a layer object in ArcPy. In the previous tool we asked the user to input the OID field. Here we are just getting the OID field from the input layer. We are using list comprehension for each field in arcpy.listFields, and we're adding in our layer. This will return a list of layer objects, and we're only interested in the field type of OID, of which one will be returned, and we are getting the field object name. And because list comprehension returns a list, we are only interested in the first element, so field will represent the OID field name for the layer. Now this get set of OIDs is actually in here by mistake. I'm just going to delete that out. We come across that later in the script. If the user has set the delete definition queries to true, we will use the update definition queries function and supply in a none value, and this will delete all definition queries set on our input layer. Now on to the exciting stuff, where we are creating the definition queries per intersection. We first need to get the current definition query list. We will use the layer object list definition queries function to return a list of definition queries, where each definition query is represented by a dictionary, as we saw in the course. We are then going to use a search cursor to iterate through each feature in the intersect layer. And we are only interested in the name field and the geometry field of the intersect layer. For each feature in our search cursor, we will use the select layer by location tool from the data management toolbox. We'll supply in our in layer, and we want to get a selection from the in layer that intersects the geometry of the current feature from the intersect layer. We'll assign the calling of the select layer by location tool to a variable called selection. The result object from the select layer by location tool returns the number of features selected. It is the third element in the result object. Although the documentation will tell you it's a long, it is actually a string. So we cast it to an integer. So we are casting the count returned from the selection. And if that is greater than 0, we are going to get a set of all OID values from the selection. Here we are using set comprehension. For each row in the selection, we want the value of the OID field. We will then use the OID values to create an SQL statement. Our SQL statement is constructed here. This 0 will be replaced by the field name, which will be the OID field name. I'm looking for values in, so we used the parentheses, and this 1 is going to be replaced by a comma separated list of OID values. We then construct our definition query from what we learned in the course, that each definition query is a dictionary with a name value, which we set as row 0, which is the unique value from the intersect feature. Our SQL is our SQL statement above, and we're going to set is active to false. So none of the definition queries created are going to be set as the active definition. We then append the definition query to our definition query list, and we use the select layer by attribute tool to clear any selections. We don't actually have to set this to equal any variable, so I'm going to remove that here. We now have an updated definition query list, and as we know, we have to use the update definition queries and supply in our definition query list to update the definition queries for our layer. In this video, we have gone through the Python script that will be behind the create definition query for intersections tool in ArcGIS Pro. In the next video, we're going to go through the construction of the custom tool in ArcGIS Pro. In this video, we will take a look at how the create definition query for intersecting features tool is constructed in ArcGIS Pro. We are in our ArcPy definition query APRX. Over on the right hand side, go into toolboxes and into ArcPy definition query toolbox. Right click on the definition query from intersection tool and select properties. The tool properties window will open. If we go into the general tab, we can see the name of the tool is def query from intersection. The label that we see in the toolbox is definition query from intersection. We see the toolbox that it resides in, and we've given a description of create definition queries for a layer based on intersection with unique features in another layer. We'll head on into the parameters tab. Here we see the 4 parameters that were described in the previous video. We have our input feature layer, which is of data type feature layer and is required. We have our intersect layer, which is also a feature layer and is required. We have our name field with unique attributes, which is a data type of field. It is required. We've set a filter that it must be a text field, and the dependency is on our intersect layer. That means that this field will be a drop down of any text field in the intersect layer. And our last parameter is delete previous definition queries, which is a boolean and is optional, and we've set a default of true, and this will be a ticked checkbox. If we go into the execution tab, we can see I have a script file here, does not exist. Select this folder over on the right. Go to folders, go to arcpy_dq, Python scripts, and select tool def query from intersection.py and click OK. And this has loaded in the Python script that we saw in the previous video. There are no validations required for this tool. Click OK. In this short video, we have gone through how we configured the create definition query for intersections tool in ArcGIS Pro. In the next video, we are going to see the tool in action. In this video, we will see our create definition query from intersection tool in action in ArcGIS Pro. I'm going to clear any selections, and in our place names, I'm going to remove any active definition query. We check that off and click apply. Click OK. And we'll turn on our county boundaries layer. It looks like there's no definition query set on the county boundaries. We'll right click and go to properties. And we can see that there are no definition queries at all. We'll click OK. Over on the right hand side in our ArcPy definition query toolbox, you can double click or you can right click on definition query from intersection and select open. For our input feature layer, we are going to select our place names. And for our intersect layer, we are going to select our county boundaries. And our name field with unique attributes, we will select county. And we will uncheck delete previous definition queries, meaning that the definition query that we saw in place names will persist after we run this tool. So let's run the tool. We'll click on view details and we'll see any messages populated to the dialog window. We have creating definition queries for Kildare, Dublin, Wicklow, Meath. We then got a message updating definition queries. We will close the dialog box. And over on the left hand side, we will right click on place names and select properties. And we can see we now have 4 added definition queries named Kildare, Dublin, Wicklow and Meath. And each definition query contains the object IDs for the place names that intersect each county. I'll just move this window slightly. Let's move it down here. If I select Kildare and click apply, we can see the map change. Let's do that for Meath. Click apply. And we see the map change once more. I'll turn off all definition queries, click apply and click OK. Let's turn on our canals. We'll go back over to our tool and we'll change place names to canals and we will run. And we can see the canals highlighting per definition query selection. We can go over to our canals on the left hand side and go into properties. And we can see we have the 4 definition queries named the same as the place names definition queries based on the county name from our county boundaries layer. We'll click OK. We'll turn on parks and we'll run our tool for parks. We should be able to see the parks highlighting per selection that is creating the definition query. We'll check our parks definition queries. And we have the 4 same names as the other 2 layers. We'll click OK. In this video, we saw the create definition query for intersections tool in action in ArcGIS Pro. The tool creates a definition query for an input layer based on an intersection with another layer. In the next section, we are going to look at a tool that uses what we have done so far and use definition queries to create our own map series. In this video, we will use definition queries to create a map series and print the map series as a PDF. Open up the tool def query map series pdf.py script from the Python scripts folder. We require 5 inputs for this tool. The first is the layout name that we are going to create the map series from. From that layout, we need the map frame name that contains the map for our map series. From that map frame, we will choose a page layer, and this is the layer that will drive the pages. Each feature in this layer will be an individual page, and we will pan and zoom to each feature and export it as a PDF page. In order to do that, we need a text field that defines unique values that allows us to iterate through the features in our page layer. And lastly, we set the output file path for the PDF that we wish to create. We have some required objects to help us with our workflow. We need to create an ArcGIS project object. This will represent the open APRX by supplying in the current value. And we'll assign this to a variable called APRX. From our ArcGIS project object, we will get a layout object by calling the list layouts function on our ArcGIS project object. and we supply in the layout name supplied by the user. And because list layouts always returns a list, we are only interested in the first element of that list. From our layout object, we want to get a map frame object. We will use the list elements function from our layout object. We are only interested in a map frame element, and we supply in the map frame name from the user input. List elements always returns a list, and we are only interested in the first element of that list. From our map frame object, we get our layer that is going to drive the map series pages. We use the map frame object map property, which returns a map object, and from this map object we use the list layers function, and we supply in our user input for the page layer name. List layers always returns a list, and we're only interested in the first element of that list. In layer will represent the layer object that will control our map series pages. We will then get a list of unique values for our pages, and we'll get this from our layer object and the name field supplied by the user. We are using a search cursor here and set comprehension. For each row or record in our layer object, we are getting the value from the name field, the attribute, and this is what row 0 here is accessing. So page values will represent unique text values for our page names. We will create a layer list, and this layer list is a list of other layers in the map that can use a definition query. We are using list comprehension here. For layer in our map frame.map.list layers, so we're accessing our map frame object and the property map, which is a map object, and we're calling the list layers to return all layers in our map. And if that layer supports a definition query and is not the page layer name, then we are returning the layer object. In our example, we are going to be using the county boundaries as our page layer. So our layer lists will contain our place names, canals, and parks. And lastly, we need the output folder where the PDF will be saved. We are just taking the out PDF string and splitting it at the last slash. We will be storing our output in our output folder. Now we create the PDF. We use the ArcPy.mp module and the PDF document create function, and we supply in our out PDF path supplied by the user. We'll assign this to a variable called PDF. We will then use a search cursor to iterate through each feature that defines our pages. In this case, it is our in layer variable. And we are only interested in the name field supplied by the user and the geometry of that feature. For each feature, so this is each feature that drives the page, we will set a definition query where the field name supplied equals the current attribute value for that field name. So for example, this will be county equals Kildare. We will then use the map frame object's camera property and set the extent to be the geometry for the current feature in the iteration. Basically, we are zooming to County Kildare. For each layer in our layer list that is not our page layer, we're going to get a list of definition queries, and we'll assign this to a variable called definition query list. For each definition query in our definition query list, if the name of the definition query is equal to the current attribute, so let's say Kildare, then we set the isActive property to true. But if it does not equal Kildare on this run, then we set isActive to false. We will then use the layer object update definition queries and supply in our definition query list to update the definition query for this iteration. So this will iterate through all three of our layers, our place names, canals, and parks, and update to match the current attribute for the name field. We'll then create an individual page name and name it page PDF, and this is just in the output folder and the name of the current attribute. We will use the layout object export to PDF function to export each page to an individual PDF. We supply the out PDF parameter to be our page PDF above, We'll set the resolution to 300. We won't maintain any layer attributes or georeference information. Once that is exported, we will append that page into our PDF. We will then delete the single page from memory. We are going to expect 4 pages for our 4 counties. Each page is exported individually and appended into another PDF. Once it's appended in, the individual one is deleted. We then save and close our PDF and we are ready to view our map series. In this video, we took a look at the Python script that will be behind our definition query map series to PDF tool in ArcGIS Pro. In the next video, we will look at constructing that tool in ArcGIS Pro, focusing on the parameters and any validation required. In this video, we will look at constructing our definition query map series to PDF tool in ArcGIS Pro. We are in our ArcPy definition query APRX. Over on the right hand side, we'll go into toolboxes and into our ArcPy definition query toolbox. We'll right click on definition query map series to PDF and select properties. Our tool properties window has opened. See the name of the tool, def query map series to PDF, the label, which is what we see in the toolbox, definition query map series to PDF, the toolbox that it resides in, and a brief description. Use definition queries to create your own map series. We'll hop into the parameters. Here we see our 5 parameters that we saw in the previous video in the Python script. We have our layout name, which is a layout here, but I'm going to change this back to a string. And we'll see why in a few minutes. We have our map frame name, which is also a string. And we are going to use validation to get the layout name from our APRX, which will then drive the map frame name. Our page layer is a feature layer from our map. Our name field of data type field. And we've set a filter here that it must be a text field. And it has a dependency on the page layer. So any text fields from our page layer will be presented as a drop down for the name field. Our output PDF is a file. We've set a filter that it must be a PDF extension. We'll go into the execution tab. Here we can see our script file is our tool def query map series pdf.py script from the previous video, and it resides in our Python scripts folder. And the code here is the same code from that script. If we go into validation, here we initialize a parameter, and that is the first parameter, our layout. We access our APRX using the ArcGIS project class and assign that to a variable called APRX. We then use list comprehension to return a list of layout names. So for layout in our APRX list layouts, we want returned the layout name property. So this will return a list of layout names. We will then supply that list of layout names as a drop-down list for our first parameter, which is our layout name. I'll click OK, and I'm going to double click on map series to PDF, and we can see this layout name drop down. I'll go back into our validation. Once the layout name has been selected, so if our first parameter has a value, again, we'll access the open APRX. We'll get our layout as a layout object using the list layouts and supplying in a wildcard, which is our layout name. And because list layouts returns a list, we're only interested in the first element. We then use that layout object to get a list of map frame names in the layout. Here we're using list comprehension. For each map frame in our layout.list elements, and we're interested in map frame elements, return the map frame name and return all map frame names as a list. We're then supplying that list as a drop down to our second parameter. I'll click OK, go back into the tool. We can see here that map frame name has no drop down, but once I select a layout name, it now has a drop down. In this video, we saw how the definition query map series to PDF tool is constructed in ArcGIS Pro. And we also showed how a couple of the validations are used when we open our tool and make a selection. In the next video, we are going to see the tool in action. In this video, we will see our definition query map series to PDF tool in action in ArcGIS Pro. Before we run this tool, there are some things that need to be in place. In the previous section, we ran our definition query from Intersecting tool, and we added definition queries for our place names, canals, and parks. And these definition queries took the name from our county boundaries county field. If we go over to the left into contents and look at canals, for example, and we right click and go to properties and into definition query, we can see the 4 definition queries that were created for our place names, canals, and parks, and the names are Kildare, Dublin, Wicklow, and Meath. I click OK, go into county boundaries and open the attribute table. We can see that these match the names of the attributes in our county field. In order for our definition query map series to PDF tool to work, the other layers in the map need to have definition queries that match these attributes. Now, if a layer doesn't have those definition queries, it doesn't matter. The data in those layers won't be subset. We'll close the attribute table. This APRX contains a layout called def query layout. Let's open that layout. Here we are only really interested in our main map frame. And we can see this is our def query map that contains our layers. Over on the right hand side in our ArcPy definition query toolbox, you can double click into definition query map series to PDF or right click and select open. For our layout name, we have a drop down with the layouts in this APRX, and there is only one, so we'll select def query layout. Our map frame name parameter has been populated with a drop down. If we select the drop down, we select our main map frame. For our page layer, we are going to select our county boundaries, so each page will zoom to each county in that layer. For the name field, we are going to select county. And for our output PDF, click on the folder icon, click into folders on the left, into ArcPy DQ, and into output, and we'll name this counties_export and click save. We can see the .pdf automatically gets added. I'm going to open our output folder so we can see how this tool operates. Here I'm in the root folder for ArcPy_DQ. I'm going to click into output and I'll just minimize this a little and we'll place it down here. When I run this tool, we will see individual PDFs populate into this folder. We will also see the map in the layout shift to each county boundary and update the definition query for all our layers. I'll click run and view details. We can already see the map changing here. And I'll open the folder. We can see that Kildare has been created. And we can see our counties export PDF has been created. I'll open this. And we have 4 pages here that only show the information from definition queries. Now you could easily expand on this tool to zoom out a little from the exact boundaries for the counties, add in other layers that do not require a definition query, and so on. It's all up to your imagination. In this video, we saw our definition query map series to PDF tool in action. We supplied the user input and we saw how the tool uses definition queries to drive each page. We exported each page individually and combined these to create one PDF. Each individual page was then deleted.